Hey guys, Tom here again from SerumPresets.com, and in this video tutorial we're going to be making a kind of progressive or like electro house pluck. Usually you hear it in like the breakdown or the build up of a track, and in this tutorial we're going to be remaking a sound that's very similar to the progressive pluck in the build up of Matt and Garrix's track Animals. I'll just quickly demonstrate the sound for you. So it's like a really gritty, really clean pluck sound, and yeah, it's kind of like not exactly the same, I don't think, but like you shouldn't really be trying to recreate sounds from tracks like exactly. You should always try and put your own kind of spin on stuff. But that being said, it is really helpful to try and learn to recreate sounds from well-known tracks. It's one of the like fastest and most efficient ways to learn in sound design is by recreating other sounds. And so we're going to be initializing the patch here and making the sound completely from scratch. But before we do, I'll just quickly mention, as you can see at the top here, this is actually Pluck 10. This is Pluck 10 from my newly released preset pack for Serum, which is kind of EDM Essentials Volume 1. And what this has is a lot of leads, basses, plucks, and pads that are really kind of versatile that you can use across a really wide variety of kind of EDM styles. Obviously, like EDM encompasses a lot of genres, but this really contains a lot of versatile sounds that are suitable for like big room, electro house, progressive house, tropical house, synth pop. Loads of really cool stuff. So if you want to go ahead and check that preset pack out, it's over at SerumPresets.com, or click the link in the description below. And there's like a 5-minute audio demo there of a lot of the sounds that are included in that and further details and so forth. Thanks in advance if you decide to purchase that. It really helps support me and the YouTube channel. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and initialize our patch here and begin making the sound completely from scratch. So in general, it's actually not that complex a sound at all. We're only going to be using saw waves. The first thing we're going to do here is go into our envelope 1. By default in Serum, envelope 1 is the amplitude envelope for the sound. So this is basically changing the volume of the sound over time. And obviously, because we want it to be pluck-like in nature, it's going to have a very short decay with a fast attack. And we're just going to bring the sustain level down here and give it a little bit of release. The next thing we're going to do is hop into envelope 3 here, and we're going to give this a really short, fast decaying envelope. Now what we're going to use envelope 3 for is actually going to be to control the amplitude of just the noise in the sound. And we're actually going to use, if we switch the noise oscillator on here, we're going to use one of the analog noise sounds. We're going to use this high passed chorus J106 noise WAV, and we're going to drag and drop this short decaying envelope onto the level and just bring the amplitude right down. The reason that we're doing this is, as you heard in the demonstration of the sound, it's a really kind of gritty pluck sound that really cuts through a mix. And a really great tip that I can give you guys for when designing lead sounds or plucks or whatever that you want to cut through a mix, just adding an envelope with really short decay of noise at the start can really help it cut through, because noise covers a really wide range of frequencies. So the next thing we're going to do is, because we're having two oscillators in the sound, if you just switch on oscillator B, both saw waves, to make the plucks basically sound bigger, what we can do is make it cover a bigger variety of frequencies, so make the sound in general just have a larger frequency range. And a really great way to do that is to separate the octaves of the oscillator B. So oscillator B is going to be playing the MIDI notes that we input into Serum, and oscillator A is going to be a very similar sound. It's just going to be a saw wave, but this is going to be playing MIDI notes that are an octave below, so it makes it sound much bigger. The next thing we're going to do for both oscillator A and B is just increase the unison to around 5. It doesn't really matter too much what you set this on. It could be anywhere between like 5 and 7 and 8 really. But essentially what unison is going to be doing is so because we got like 5 unison on oscillator A, for example, instead of just having the unison on 1 and it just recreating the saw wave with 1 voice, if we increase unison to 5, we're actually going to hear 5 different instances of this sound. And because those 5 different instances, or those 5 different voices, are all going to be slightly detuned, psychoacoustically we're going to be perceiving them to be separate sounds, and so that makes the sound bigger. And if we do this for both oscillators, it's really going to help achieve this. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take the detune amount for oscillator A and reduce it so that it's kind of more of a coherent sound for the lower frequencies. And then what we're going to do, which is an effect I really like, for our higher octave oscillator, we're going to have this much more detuned than oscillator A, so the higher frequencies in the sound are going to be sounding kind of much bigger, which is what we want. The next thing we are going to do is hop into the filter section of the sound. It doesn't really, we're going to use just a basic low pass filter. The filter that I decided to use was this German low pass filter. I don't think there was really any particular reason for this, but what we're going to do is bring down the cutoff slightly here. And what a low pass filter does is basically allows low frequencies to pass through and rolls off the high frequencies. But what we're going to do is use the envelope 1 here that we already set up to modulate the cutoff frequency of the filter. So at the start of the sound, we're going to get that, as I mentioned earlier, we want this Pluck sound to kind of cut through the mix. So by having an envelope that triggers the cutoff frequency in the way that we've kind of set up this envelope, what's going to happen is at the start of the sound there's going to be a lot of high frequency content, and then it's going to die away, which really helps add that really sharp attack to the sound which you want from a Pluck. The other thing to make sure is that oscillator B is being routed through the filter, because we want all of the sound to be routed through this filter, and I'll just show you the sound we've got so far. So that's the basis of the Pluck sound so far. The next thing we are also going to do is hop into the effects section here, and we're going to add some things to kind of make the sound a little bit more interesting than it currently is. The first thing we're going to do this is add this hyperdimension effect. The hyper section of this effect essentially uses a similar method to the unison that I was discussing earlier to create different instances of the sound and then detune them. So in the way that unison was used within these oscillators to make the individual oscillators sound bigger, the hyper effect does this for the whole sound. So we don't want this to be too extreme, so we're going to bring down the mix just a little bit. We're also going to use this dimension expander effect, which is similar to the dimension expander in Massive, if you've ever used Massive. And what this does is it's kind of trying to achieve the same thing, so a bigger sound, but it does this through basically triggering delayed versions of the sound and then basically just making the sound bigger. So I'll just quickly show you what this sounds like. So you can definitely hear the difference there. It makes it sound much bigger. The next thing we're going to do is add some multi-band compression to the sound to bring out some of the highs. So what we do is just switch on the compressor effect here and then click this multi-band button. And essentially what this is going to do is just compress particular bands of frequencies rather than the sound as a whole. What we're going to do then is increase the gain, so it's going to bring out some of the highs and mids to make it sound much more crispy. Just a word of warning before you do this: because you're increasing the gain of the sound, you also want to decrease the master gain. Next thing we're going to do is bring the threshold down so that essentially the compressor works by boosting frequencies above or below a certain threshold. So by bringing this down, it's going to kind of bring up more of the sound. So if we listen to this currently now, you can hear that it's bringing a lot of the highs out and making it sound much more kind of crispy. The next thing we're going to do is just increase the release. This is just so that the compressor is only really mainly working on increasing the volume of the frequencies at the start of the sound. And then what we're going to do is add the distortion effect here. What this is going to do, we're going to use this to do is use the downsample distortion, which you can hear on the Pluck sound in the original track by Martin Garrix. It's got this like downsampling effect, which I'll just demonstrate for you here. What you're going to want to do is move the distortion to after the multi-band compressor in the effects chain. Otherwise, the compressor is going to be bringing out a lot of the distortion, which we don't really want. We don't want the distortion to completely overwhelm the sound. So I'll just quickly show you what this sounds like. So that gives it kind of more of an electro house sound, in my opinion. So if electro house isn't really a thing and you want kind of like a softer Pluck, you might not want to put this distortion on, but yeah, it's completely up to you really. The final thing we're going to do is simply add some reverb. I mean, you can either use reverb within Serum itself, or you can use any reverb of your choice. Personally, I'd probably use an external reverb, as Serum's reverb isn't like my favorite in the world. But if you are going to use Serum's reverb, we don't really for this I want to alter the size or the mix too much. This is set to around the right level. But what we want to make sure to do is increase this low cut parameter. What this is going to do is cut out a lot of the low frequencies in the sound. Usually if you pass a lot of low frequencies through a reverb, it ends up sounding really muddy in the low end of your mix, which you really don't want. And the other thing that I do personally when using Serum's reverb is increase this high cut parameter, and this is going to attenuate some of the really harsh high frequencies in the reverb and just make it sound a little bit more warm. So this is the finished sound. I'll just quickly show you what it actually sounds like. So hopefully you got some use out of this tutorial. Hopefully you learnt a thing or two. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I really appreciate all your support on these videos, all the likes and comments and stuff like that. Again, if you haven't already, go ahead and check out my website over at SerumPresets.com. I've just released the EDM pack that I mentioned earlier, but I've also got some other preset packs on there, such as I've got a deep house pack out. If trance is your thing, I've got a trance preset pack out, and also a future house bass pack as well, which some of you guys might be interested in. So yeah, if you're interested in that, go ahead and click the link in the description below, or go over to SerumPresets.com. Subscribe to stay up to date with new tutorials that I bring out, and if you've got any questions, feel free to let me know down below, and I do try to respond to everyone. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.